This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello and welcome to the dynamic Simracersworld GT series live on the iRacing Esports Network. I'm Sam Fitzpatrick, and alongside me this evening to take you through the action is going to be Marco Babner, who is also on the cameras. We're here at the Barcelona circuit, one of the first times that Apex Racing TV has broadcasted a race around here. And Marco, sometimes the races around here aren't necessarily the most entertaining. I think today though, that is going to be a change, because we've got a mega competitive GT3 field, and really many of these drivers are in contention for finishing right up there.
Absolutely, yes. Level playing field for everyone, more or less. A very new racetrack, if that is even something you are allowed to say in the English language. Of course, these drivers have done some practice and maybe raced here in official series or other championships with other cars, but certainly it's nice to have the end of the season on a back-to-back trip to the two newest road courses in iRacing, of course, because then we are going to go to Silverstone for the season finale next week. A bit sad that the season is coming to an end, but we have two more very interesting races to follow, and let me first of all say a good welcome back to Marten van Loosenord, who is looking to put the final touches on his fantastic championship season this evening.
Yeah, I was trying to do the maths before we went live about what he needs to consolidate the championship. However, there's two drop scores in the mix. We can say it quite simply. He's in a very good position, and I don't think we're going to necessarily call him champion today, even if the points go all his own way. We'll probably wait till the next round, but he is looking as though he pretty much has it sewn up. But of course didn't win last time out, Imola, because he wasn't here, unfortunately. Apparently a little bit ill. That gave his opportunity to Kevin van der Slyck take his first ever win in the series, but in qualifying at the moment. We are in the early stages, only 5.5 minutes into this 20-minute session. Van Loosenord 7/10 clear upon the driver's first run, so looking very strong for him at the moment. But I'm sure he's going to have some decent competition, as Marco said. There is pretty much no advantages in terms of experience around this place. New to pretty much all of these drivers. In the championships, of course, as we've been saying, Van Loosenord looking very strong. Van der Slyck, after that win, moves a little bit more clear in second place, ahead of Chris Warner, Matthias de Teach, and Tom Methel, rounding out the top 5 there, but it's still very competitive. in that gold category. In the silver category, it's still mega close. So the top three who are very close are Ingmar Andersen on 335, then Jeremy Hessels on 326, and Nick Sherman's on 324. So a win for any of those guys could potentially turn that one around. Ronald means a little bit detached now in fourth place. So it looks as though it's going to be a 3-horse battle in that silver class. And then in the bronze class, Giles Mujdi, after a bit of a tricky start to the season, he hasn't had it all his own way this season, but he has got a decent lead on 224 points. William Bush is second with 213. Rob Thiessen 213, and then also Pim Bao on 205 and Theisberg on 190. So still that class quite open. So watch out for those drivers. I mean, Marco, we say it pretty much every week, but the way that they've divided these classes up this season has been absolutely perfect. I mean, the silver and the bronze classes, the top three, any of which could win. I mean, the difference between them is negligible.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. I think the best thing about this championship, after the great racing and the fantastic community behind it, it's certainly the way they've made it possible for everyone to have fun, and by having a good division of the classes, which is actually very very hard to do. They really made it possible to have, no matter where you are on the field, you are guaranteed to have some good fun, and I'm expecting more of the same tonight. I'm also having reading a lot of activity in the chat tonight, so say hello. A lot of the drivers. I don't know why they are talking to us. Thank you guys. Really appreciate that you are using your time to talk to us. But shouldn't you be on the track qualifying? Or even though I see Chris Moretta very active in the chat, but I don't think he is racing tonight. So that is one thing to consider. It's like I said, very sad that the season is coming to an end. I hope that this season we'll have two fantastic races to say goodbye to us, and the ingredients are all there now to continue to what we were talking about earlier. We need to make the pasta, I think we have good chance to do so. Ian Roots, speaking of league, not here for the second running week due to other circumstances, and I have to say the boys are behaving very very well. There has been no mutiny, no coup d'etat, nothing from the rest of the Simracersworld community. They are all playing nicely. Hopefully this continues until next week when he comes back.
Absolutely, and if Ian is watching along, I doubt it. I think he's pretty much turned his phone off, and good for him. I hope he's having a fantastic time on his honeymoon. I'm sure he is, and I'm sure, will be very strong when it comes to Silverstone to finish out the season. If he gets 11th place, well, that'll be better than his wedding, I'm sure. Ruben Van Buell we're riding on board with. We can maybe stick on board with him for the majority of this lap, just to see this Barcelona circuit, Marco. Of course, this place, I think, built in the very early 90s, like 1990 or 1991, I think was the first F1 race around here. And it's certainly got a distinct characteristic, and that's what I like about this place. It's very long corners, a lot of fast-flowing corners. I mean, before you put in the new turn 10 and also the final chicane, it was literally just all high-speed or medium-speed corners. And it's certainly got a big character about it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, particularly in the real world, but I imagine to drive in these GT3 cars, it must be quite satisfying.
I mean, it reminds me a lot of my local racetrack in the sense that it's a track that has a very wide variety of corners. Most of the year it has very nice weather, so perfect place for testing. Sadly, the way it is shaped with the current rule package in F1, it really doesn't help the racing despite the changes they've been trying to make. We will see when the rules are updated in 2021 if this is going to be different, but you can see, you are right, long sweeping corners. Especially the problem is that the biggest passing zone in turn one comes after another, long sweeping corner, the right-hander that our man Ruben is taking right now. So when you have cars that are very sensible of the wake turbulence of the car in front, you basically lose all the advantage you can have then on the straight. This is different, of course. GT3 cars, GT cars in general, are less aerosensitive, even though they have a little bit of aerosensitive issues, which is, of course, impossible to remove completely. But let's say I hope and I think it's not going to be as not entertaining as the recent F1 races around here. Now, of course, even as a test track, it is not. I mean, the teams, if you remember, lately, I mean, until a few years ago, they had the idea of testing in Bahrain. Because the weather is even better there, as we say hello to our steward Peter Growels and Bart Hellman. But the fantastic, advantage of going in the desert to test in winter compared to the still mild but winter nonetheless here in Barcelona was offset sadly by very very big costs in terms of travel expenses for the teams to bring their cars there in Bahrain. So for the time being, this still is the, I would say, official test track of F1, which is also another reason why it's very difficult to have entertaining races around here, because the teams know this track very very well. They know all the tricks and all the secrets. Still a very very entertaining racetrack. I will close my rant with a a quote from Marco Lucchinelli, who is a legendary Italian rider, especially in superbike competition. And asked about this racetrack, he once said, "When we started racing here, it was one of the slowest racetracks in the calendar. Now it is one of the fastest," which I know talks a lot about how much racetracks have changed over the years, both in bike racing but also in auto racing, because most of the tracks are, of course, shared between the disciplines.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a little bit surprising about that. Sorry to go on this tangent, but of course, everyone loves the fast sweeping corners, but I guess in a bid to increase overtaking, a few more braking zones, it is going to be tricky to overtake around here. Of course, that turn one, as you were saying, Marco, not too much of an issue with the turbulence in these cars, but it's still not a big braking spot. In fact, this is the biggest braking spot down into turn 10. And if you get a good run through 9, it's certainly going to be possible. But it is one of the narrow parts of the track, and it's quite possible to defend, perhaps. It should be fascinating. We don't fully know what's the race is going to be like here, because we really haven't done that many races so far around this track. In qualifying, Mats van Liesel still leading the way, 3.5 tenths now ahead of Danny Coast, so still quite a comfortable margin. And he's still putting in some very good times, is Van Liesel. PJ Clayson's lines up in third place at the minute, and then it's Lewis Ward, and Jais Mujdi
Yeah,
is
he's
in fifth
having a
place.
fantastic
That
run.
is
Yeah.
quite incredible. I wonder if he's managed to do a little bit more practice than the other drivers, but that is of course, Cheese has always been usually top 15 in qualifying. Top 5, that is really taking it to a brand new level, and that is just what he needs if he wants to become the bronze class champion for the first ever time. Undoubtedly will get promoted to a silver for next season, no matter where he finishes, because if it weren't for a couple of fuel misdemeanors, I think he would have this championship much more comfortably, but he is still putting himself in a very good place. Kevin Boland just crossing the line as well. And
Yeah.
also Mark Van Liesnold still to come. Not too difficult with the off tracks, thankfully, here, Marco. Of course, it's not something that we don't like to talk about too much. We did have some disqualifications at Imola last week, which was a absolutely crazy race. So no surprise that we did have some disqualifications. But yeah, it's pretty difficult to pick them up, Granted.
It's difficult, yes. One of the newer tracks, so iRacing has been a bit more lenient with the newer racetracks, with the rough tracks, as Van Loosener gets a 42.1 and improves on his already pole position worthy time. They prefer to give out slowdowns, so this is, the biggest problem I see in this racetrack, and you may have caught a glimpse of this while we were watching Danny Cruz those terrible speed bumps on the inside of many corners, especially in the final chicane. It is quite easy to get quote unquote beached, or at the very least be basically propelled in the air, so that your car has no chance of being pointed in the direction you want. And maybe when you are in a battle side by side, you jump on one of these yellow monsters here, and you cannot point your car where you want. There might be an issue with crashes, etc., because they are very harsh on the cars. Uh, I was broadcasting a TCR series around here a few weeks ago, and there were many crashes. And even the TCR cars, which usually they are very good when going on the bumps, didn't like those bumps very much. So something to keep an eye on, because they are basically all over the place, but especially in that final chicane.
Yeah, definitely, and it is a great challenge down here. Up there with perhaps Kota in terms of the difficulty. Of course, through that S's section in where he races around Kota, extremely difficult. But there you can see Dion
Look at
Phillips,
that.
and he causes some damage on that car as well. And, well, that'll do a little bit more damage as well. And also a fire extinguisher, just languishing in the pit lane there, looking for a home. It may need using, I think, at some
Yeah.
point in this race. Although hopefully won't see any big crashes down the pit straight. That could be quite disastrous. Chris Warner approaching the line. He was in 6th place, and that was not an improvement. About 4/10 slower than his best lap, but he seems to be going for another one. He's got a driver just behind him as well. Tried to pick up a bit of a slipstream. Ryan Walker running wide at that final chicane, and it really compromises his exit. And if he is going to go for another lap, that's not going to be the best start to that lap either. This is 4th attempt, and currently sitting in 31st
31st.
place
Yeah.
is Ryan Walker. He'll seemingly continue for another one. Van Liesman still leading the way. 4/10 to the second head of Danny Craze. We saw a little bit of an upset with the Rev Match drivers last week, Marco. Admittedly, one still did win, but it was very close. Fury Simsport looking very strong. Alpine as well, really challenging. Maybe that wasn't one of their best circuits similar, but right now lining up 1 and 2. But I would say their domination of this race has come to a bit of an end this season. I think at Spa we had something like 5 top 6 first round of the season being Rev Match drivers, whereas I'm looking down the order Claysons and Wards, of course, Alpine Sim Sport and Mujdi, Warner, Van Buell, Marshall. You have to go down to Anderson to find another Rev Match driver after the top 2. So it's good to see this variety of teams.
Absolutely, it is, and I think that the more this goes on, the better it is for the series. Of course, when you are in the front of the field, you deserve to be there. So it's not Rev Match's fault that they have been so dominant this season. But of course, this will bring out more, competitive spirit from the other teams, and hopefully will bring even a much more varied grid. In terms of, we have a very varied grid. I think maybe some more new faces on the podium. And I think PJ Claessens especially is having a fantastic second half of the season. The switch to Meraki has really improved his speed. As he comes home, one more chance for him. Here he goes, and he will not improve. That was not a valid lap time. So now, Sam, we are just waiting for these drivers to bring home their cars, and then we will be ready to go racing for the penultimate time this season, as a little bit of a cloud cover is jumping onto the racetrack. Speaking of which, let's get rid of the track map and show you the weather. Track is 29 degrees, so very good conditions for racing. 12 kilometers per hour of wind. The ambient is 21 degrees. It's going to become a little bit hotter as we go through the day, as Anderson comes home, not improving on his time. But still, if the sun doesn't come out during the race, it's going to be quite a good condition for these drivers.
Yes, definitely. By the way, we were talking about teams before with Rev Match perhaps loosening their hold of this championship. Martin Plowman crosses the line, goes from 14th to 8th, so very good time there for Fury Simsport. Currently, Van Leeuwenhoek and Monster lead the way. However, Monster's not here this week, and he wasn't here last week either, or the week before that. And that's their lead of just over 100 points could be trimmed down by Simracersworld and Fury Simsport. So do watch out for that one. We'll try to keep you up to date with the team championship. Usually quite difficult to keep up with, especially during the races. But you don't usually pay too much attention to it. But it is very close at the moment in, I think, pretty much all the classes. Ben Thames with a lot of damage on his car. I assume he didn't crash on this lap. If he did, then he would have picked up some incidents, and this lap will be redundant. I don't think the pace that he's carrying through that final chicane will be fast enough, and certainly is coming into the pits will not help that lap time either. So, and this is how we're going to sit. Good job by Marco on the cameras. See, dip a wheel somewhere. That's usually the mistake that drivers make. Oh, actually, it's just getting a little bit of a slide on, and then over correcting the car, a little bit over the bumps, and spinning into the wall. Cost these drivers with traction control, but they don't put it all the way up. They want it on a lowish setting, especially in qualifying. Just means that you get a little bit more power down on the circuit, whilst it might spin up the tyres a bit more. The drivers have pretty much all put in their qualifying times, and so we can go through your starting grid in just a moment, and it is pretty much what we have seen a lot of the time. All but 2 races, I believe, this season. Martin Van Leeuwenhoek has taken pole position. There he is on the front row of the grid. 3/10 of a second ahead of Danny Kroes. PJ Clayson's in third place with his teammate Lewis Ward in fourth. Jai Mushti, by far his best ever qualifying, up in fifth place. Terrific job from him. Chris Warner in sixth. Ruben Van Buell in seventh. It was Martin Plowman. Nick Sherman's top of the silver drivers in ninth. That's very important for his championship challenge. Ewan Marshall rounding out the top 10. That's championship leader in the silver class. Ingmar Anderson starting in 11th. Last week's race winner, Kevin van der Slik, struggling down in 12th place, but expect him to make up many places today. Dion Phillips starts in 13th. Then it's Ben Thanes, Bod Boland, Gregory Ranks, Jeremy Hessels, Steve Clays, Neil Cooper struggling a little bit down in 19th. Then it's Ronald Means, Kevin Boland, Rob Thiessen, Bram Van Utsven, Pim Bao, Thijs Berg, Stephen de Wolf, Drew Musselwhite, William Bush, Stephen Kastrop, Roy Ververke, Ryan Walker, and then James Hobden did not set a qualifying time. So, Marco, we've seen kind of different races so far this season. Some races Van Leeuwenhoek has gone off into the distance. Kota was a very good example of that. The last race he took part in a couple of weeks ago. But is there any hope for Danny Kroes and PJ Clayson's to perhaps challenge him, you think, today?
Yes, absolutely. There is a chance to do so. I think, of course, Martin has this pretty good record of winning every race he has taken part on. So they need him to make one of his rare mistakes, or they need to find some extra speed in their car. So we'll see what comes out. Of course, not going to be easy, but anything can happen, and probably will. Especially, we know this series is. One that goes every race goes in a crescendo of emotions until the final few minutes, which are usually absolutely crazy. You can see the lights are about to come on top of your screen, which means that the pace lap or pace corners are about to start, and here we go for this most important penultimate round of the season. Pole position will be on the inside for Martin van Leeuwenhoek. You can see in his Ferrari, then he crosses his teammate in the Audi. Then another Ferrari of Claessens and the Mercedes of Lewis Ward. You can see here, and the rest of the field. Colorful, beautiful as per usual. I think it's going to be a great race. Sam, pace car about to pull off.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of a tricky start for some of these drives near the back through that chicane, Le Mans-esque. But Martin Van Leeuwenhoek doesn't need to worry about that. He can put his foot down whenever he likes. Currently, Kroes just leaning in front of him. Is that going to hurt Kroes badly? Van Leeuwenhoek puts his foot down. Kroes straight away gets across, trying to get into the slipstream of his teammate. And still off the launch, at least, it is a Rev Match Racing 1 2 at the moment. However, trying to challenge is Lewis Ward, who already has got past PJ Clayson's. Are those two Meraki drivers going to make contact, perhaps going into turn 1? It's Ward who gets ahead round the outside. Now the Fury Simspot driver of Chris Warner, who's gained a place,
Oh!
also trying to take advantage as we got a spin in the background. That is Ben Thanes with an awful start in the bronze category, and you can see he's right to the back of the field. Also, Gregory Ranks losing a few places. Ingmar Anderson, poor start for him. Great start for Bud Burns, up 3 places. Van der Slick up a place. Hessel's good start for him, and Cooper as well. Pim Bao up 4 places as well. And most importantly, for the top 2 for the Rev Match drivers, still in those 1-2 places.
Could have been a disaster there, as I just cut away from the action and there is Bram van Uytven going very, very slowly. And now trying to gather his car back. Could have been a disaster there for Ben Tains. It was a disaster for him, but we see in real life as well, if someone spins in that particular corner at the start of the race, usually it ends up in tears. We had a very close call in F1 couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Only him was involved, but we see, now we have bigger issues. Moons, Phillips, and I think Gregory Ranks also involved in this mess.
There's Van Uytven dropping down with plenty of damage. Ranks really dropping down the order as we speak as well. This is how it all happened. So this is with Ronald Moons. Is he just going to tap his rival? Oh, in fact, actually, he got involved in it all afterwards and managed to use that little bit of track off the outside in a few places thanks to it. This was Phillips then making contact with the Meraki driver.
No, it was 3 rev match cars touching each other, which is sometimes, a byproduct of having that many cars in the field. Oh, bit wide there was Danny Cruz. Sadly, Dion Phillips had to tow back to the pits, so I think that will be the end of his race. We also saw Bram van Uytven with some massive damage to his Dynamics Mercedes there, the unmistakable lime green colored car. So sadly, Dion Phillips, I think we'll have to call it a day.
Van der Slick making up more places. He's now up 3 places from his start, getting past Ewan Marshall on that occasion. Next up on his list is Ruben Van Wiel. He lost places to Martin Plowman. So it's a good start, actually, for the drivers on the even side of the grid, which is something we don't usually see. The drivers on the odd side of the grid almost always get a good launch away from the field. But actually, I think it may have started off with PJ Clayton, who perhaps was a little bit slow to react. Danny Cruz was quicker to react, and so that entire row of odd-placed drivers seemingly lost a position. So not a fantastic start for those guys. Under a second away from all these drivers as a Fury Simspot driver goes round. It's Chris Warner. An uncharacteristic mistake there. Bod Boland also running a little bit offline as we cut to him. And there's Warner waiting to get back going, but watching the entire field racing past. The driver who was fighting for race victory last week, and also fighting for second place in the championship as well, but that is pretty much half a minute lost for him right there.
Yeah, let's see the replay then. I'm afraid maybe a victim of those yellow nasty curbs. Yes, on the outside that one is... oh, and also clipped the wall there. And it wasn't the biggest of hits, but a hit nonetheless. And so, certainly not what Chris had in mind to begin his race. We have a move here between Plowman and Mushdi. Plowman on the comeback trail now after... it's been a characteristic of Martin, not having the best of qualifyings as per usual. But then in the race, he really shows his good pace, and he can usually make the most out of the situation. Martin, of course, a real-life driver in British GT, plenty of real-life drivers. We also have the European Lamborghini Super Trofeo champion and former TCR Europe and TCR International driver Danny Cruz sitting in second place, and plenty of others. Steve Clace, of course, that has the best ride of them all, and really a dream since I was a little kid. being a driver of the Volkswagen Fun Cup. They do the beautiful enduro in Spa-Francorchamps, I think 25 hours. One day I will ask Steve to have me as his co-driver or something.
You can make the tea for the team, perhaps.
Hmm.
Of course, I mean, you're a Sebring 12 hours winner in 10th split. In these cars, of course. So we do have some success in the commentary box today. Lewis Ward under pressure now from his teammate PJ Clayton. It was actually the Furious in Spot Jazz who swapped rounds at Imola last week, giving themselves the best chance at perhaps challenging for the race win. Not sure if they're going to do that today out of these Meraki drivers. Apologies for calling them Alpine Simsport drivers earlier on. I still have the old skins on because I am unprepared.
What a
But
surprise!
they are Meraki drivers, and I'll have to force that into my brain. Ruben Van Buell down to 8th place, getting overtaken by Kevin van der Slik, who is on an absolute charge. Van der Slik on that last lap faster than Lewis Ward up in 3rd place, and that's time to make overtakes currently for van der Slik. So will be fascinating to hear from him at the end of the race, perhaps, to see what happened in that qualifying session, because he's a Joe who's usually quite strong in qualifying, and he was over a second off his teammates in 1st and 2nd place. So extremely unusual for him, but he's certainly making up for it, albeit he is 6 seconds off the lead already. Here's a couple more Rev Match drivers, and it is Rob Thiessen sliding his way past into 17th place past his teammate Pimbal. Both those with good starts. Also, Steam DeWolf just ahead of them with 10 places gained, the highest gainer on this entire field. So very good for Thiessen, who of course has got a half chance at the bronze class title. But he does need a couple of favours, I think, from Jais Mujdi if he's going to achieve that.
Also, I need to tell you that we are trying to mount a challenge for Daytona early next year with my co-driver from the Sebring Victory, but of course we're going to need more drivers for that challenge there, because yeah, if you remember, my co-driver drove for 9.5 hours in that Sebring win. So if you multiply by 24, I still have, Plowman goes wide there, a decent, decently reasonable driving time, but that poor guy probably will, become at one with the wheel and the chair, so. So if you want to jump on the bandwagon and try to win Daytona with me, you're welcome. Come join me. Great move there from Van der Slik. He goes past. Still a fantastic race from Mujdi, P7, and in the lead of the bronze class, Sam, and most importantly, a lot of places between himself and the second driver, Rob Thiessen, of his class, P17, and of course this season the points for the class championships are dished out based on where you finish on the racetrack, so that you get the points for finishing in that position, no matter where you are. So if you finish 7th, first in bronze, you get the points for 7th place overall, even in your bronze class. And so this would be a massive haul of points for Dries, should he be able to bring the car home in the top 10 or so.
He does seem to be falling back a little bit, does Mujdi. He was running up in 5th place just a few moments ago, and of course, remember, he had Chris Warner who spun, who was ahead of Mujdi. So he has fallen down a bit, but, I mean, anything, if he could get a top 10, I mean, that would be a stunning result, and he's a long way clear of the next bronze driver, who is Rob Thiessen, down in 17th place. The gap between those two drivers, in terms of time, is 13 seconds, so there's really nothing to worry about for him at the moment, as Rob Thiessen, speaking of him, and he's now getting ahead of Ben Thanes, or getting overtaken by Thanes, apologies.
Yes.
And Thanes, of course, spun on the opening lap, running wide onto the gravel. Maybe a little bit of extra traction out there, not quite sure. It seemed to not hinder him too much. We could see another overtake hit with Martin Plowman under pressure from Kevin van der Slik. 7 places gained for the Rev Match Esports driver. He is making quick work of these guys at the moment, and I think he's got pace to catch that 3-second gap to PJ Clayson's up the road. This has happened a bit wide, actually. And having to get out of the throttle, if anything, did Martin Plowman. And it really opened the door for Kevin van der Slik. No points in fighting that one. And van der Slik giving Bev Match perhaps a chance at a 1-2-3, just as we were saying that their spell of dominance was over. He's making a lockout on the podium look more and more possible with every passing moment.
Yes, absolutely. That was a very nice move there from Van der Slik, as he tries to now close the gap on the Meraki duo, and PJ Clayson should be next. I was wanting to make a point, but I forgot what I was going to say. Let's use this occasion to remind the viewers about the rules of the championship, of course. In terms of the race, you have to do one stop. It's not like you have to, it's not mandatory, but it is recommended if you don't want to run out of fuel. And usually the pit stop takes place as late as possible in the race, unless you are in a unique situation, just like traffic, you know, you want to get an undercut. Drivers will usually only take the fuel. Tires will not be helpful in this case, because the time that you lose changing the tires, it is a very long pit stop. It won't be offset by the time you gain on the track. There is not enough time to make up the time that you lose while changing the tires. So fuel only stop as late as possible, with you know, a different strategy that could happen if you want to make an undercut. But right now we don't see Sam any kind of you know, massive train, in the sense that there's a car that's blocking everyone else. You know, sometimes it happens, you know, a 5-car train with a slower car but tough to pass. So I don't think that the undercut will be as prominent, at least now. I want to ask you something else. That was my point, because I see that Danny Cruz's name is flashing in red constantly. I wanted to have an update, if possible, on his incident points.
Yes, I forget I have this power. Kroos is, well, Boland's on 9, so watch out for that one. Kroos is on 7, so he's actually on more than most drivers. Van Oytsven is on 14. I don't know what he's been doing. I think he's driven off to Portugal and back, seemingly, with that instant count. I mean, that's most drivers on 1 or 0.
Yeah, he was involved, as you can see. Remember, car having a bit of issues at the beginning of the race. You can see there, as in front of him, a fight for 9th place in silver between Musselwhite and Walker. As in front of them, Chris Warner, of course, on the comeback trail, getting past William Bush. So far, we have Kevin Bolland in the pits, and same goes for Dion Phillips, the two drivers who are sadly, I think, already out of the race, as Ryan Walker is still having a fight with Musselwhite, but I think Musselwhite now will try to pull away, as these rev match guys today, they are not pulling any punches. Overtake from Bob Boland on Steve Clays. So someone was asking about prizes. I guess they were asking about the prizes for joining me in Daytona. I think the prize is my everlasting gratefulness, and of course the honor for you to drive with a former Sebring 12-hour champion, and most importantly, a TV celebrity like myself trying to go for the win. So what more can you want?
I mean, I constantly mention your 12 hours. If you won 24 hours of Daytona, I'm sure we could give a shout out to whoever accompanied you en route to that. So you will become an Apex Racing TV legend, I'm sure, if you did decide to take up that task. I mean, that's the biggest challenge in all of sim racing, I'm sure. Jeremy Hessel's trying to make a move. Now, the BMW, of course, anyone who's familiar with the iRacing GT3 cars, the BMW, it's always tended to be the slowest car down the straights, but very fast through the corners, fantastic brakes as well. And so this middle part of the track might well be Hessel's best opportunity at making a move. Of course, one of the championship contenders in the silver class, along with Anderson and Sherman's, of course. By the way, Sherman's down into 11th place. Did we see why Sherman's lost so many places? Because he seemed to get a decent start, but behind Ingmar Anderson, who is now the leading silver driver out on the field.
Don't see any issue for Nick during these first few laps. Maybe just underwhelming pace. I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't think he was involved in any shenanigans. Maybe he's taking his time, waiting for the right moment to start pushing hard. As the two Meraki drivers are still inching ever close to each other. Mercedes versus Ferrari. How many times have we seen this battle around this racetrack in F1? Of course, this is also the venue for the season finale, usually of the of what was once called the Blancpain GT series, which now is waiting for a new title sponsor. I don't know if Claessens will maybe be talking. I think he's on the radio with Lewis. Maybe they will go for a position swap if they think that PJ is a bit quicker than his teammate.
I mean, they really want to get a podium out of this, I'm sure, to these two drivers. Van der Slik now only 2 seconds behind them. Are Ward and Clayton's on a team together now? Is this a change of position? Ward's gestured, very much opening the door for him, and now he's opened the door once again, but it seems though they are letting one another pass at the moment. I mean, you can kind of see how there's not too much advantage in letting one another go. And of course, as we saw earlier on this season around this track in Formula 1, you can let one teammate pass and they won't necessarily pull away. And that's even more evident in these GT3 cars where, of course, if you are following, then you do have a bit of advantage. Slipstream, also being able to spot your braking zones a little bit better, learn from the driver ahead. And again, unusual gesturing from Lewis Ward, slaloming down that pit straight, but no lift off for him whatsoever. He's not making it easy for PJ Claessens. So on that last lap, Van der Slik took another half a second out their lead in the team's championship. By the way, these two, I do not see them on the team's championship, so they're not too prominent. So in that title hunt. These two drivers, but they still certainly want to convert a podium if they possibly can.
I think we have an issue for several drivers, including Ryan Walker and Bram van Oitven, who are running close to each other. Van Oitven needs to be careful because we were saying he's very, very tight on incident. Oh, they both make a close acquaintance with that, and that I think it's one way to make an overtake, Sam.
Yes, there's quite a few ways, and that is certainly one of them. Both making a bit of a mistake, and both picking up incidents, as you were saying. Of course, 25 incidents is the limit. I don't think we've said that earlier on. So you really want to keep as many of them secure as you possibly can going into the closing stages. Almost contact there with Van Buell under pressure, and now he's run wide again. Can square off that corner a bit though, and he pulls away from his rival momentarily. This is the battle with Ingmar Anderson, who really would like to put a car between himself and his silver class rival Nick Sherman's, but cannot get past the BMW at the moment, and it's Van Buell with a much better exit there. A little bit stuck behind Ewan Marshall still. He's a further 2 seconds behind Dries Muschke. He seems to be very much holding his own now in 7th place.
I don't know about your what the official incident count is saying, but I keep seeing Danny Cross going wide. I don't know what the official count says now is saying, but it seems like he's using
11.
a little 11. So the same as the live timing software, which is a big thumbs up to Pascal, of course. He's, real life driver, so I think he's doing what real life drivers do, especially in a track like this. They extend track limits, of course. It's a league race, so there is no safety rating implications with this. Of course, the disqualification could be a possibility, but if you can manage your incident points, you can certainly use them to your advantage later down the road. As we have another very tight fight here still with Ranks, Thanes, and Thyssen. As we might have had an issue for Steve Clays. Let's see what happened here. He was following closely the Mercedes of Bob Boland. And around he went. Slow, lazy spin. And back on the track.
Yeah, unusual for the rear end just to seemingly give up there on Steve Clay. He'll be frustrated with that. The track temperature not too warm, still 32 degrees. It's a feature of this championship that usually the races are in the morning, and so we get a vast increase in temperature as the race goes on. Expect we started off at about 30 degrees and expect it to be about 40 by the end of the race, which is a big reduction of grip. And of course, with the fact that the tyres as well will be dropping off, will be a challenge for these drivers. So De Wolf at the front of this pack. Then it's Ranks, Thanes, and Thiessen. Moon's a bit detached at the back. And De Wolf may have to put his car into the middle of the circuit. That's what he does, pretty much just saving all the options. However, it will compromise his run through this corner. Too much you can do, though, going into turn 3, of course. And De Wolf, despite taking a slightly tighter line, fortunately for him, the drivers behind also starting to fight a bit. This is the battle for 17th and 16th place, of course. De Wolf must have had an absolutely terrific first lap because he went up 10 places and he's pretty much been stable ever since then. And you can see he's at risk of dropping back a little bit, but that racecraft has really helped him out significantly. Of course, fighting for the silver class title last season hasn't quite been as successful this season. I think has missed a few rounds, it must be said. But you can see his racing attitude's right out there as he's going to get a big slowdown. And he might even get another slowdown. That's going to be those 3 places lost very quickly for Stephen de Wolf. Great shame for him because he was defending pretty well right there.
He was. That's all it takes. One mistake, and this is not over in front of him because we are having Thanes and Ranks side by side for 16th position. And Thanes gets the spot.
Now, can he pull away Ben Thanes? He got caught up in a spin early on. You question what could have been for him. But he's actually had pretty good pace. He's really recovered very well as the Match Esports driver. He's now got 6.5 seconds to catch up to the next car. BMW really accelerating quite nicely down this straight, and he might have to defend things into turn 1. Doesn't feel the need to. In the end, Franks didn't feel the need to go for a move either. It's one of the closest battles out on circuit at the moment. Battle that is really getting interesting now is the battle for the final spot on the podium. Lewis Ward still ahead of PJ Clayton's, but now Kevin van der Slick has joined the party, up 7 places already. And on that last lap, he was 0.4 of a second faster than the 2 drivers ahead of him.
Let's bring up the sectors comparison. And see. Gap increasing 1/10 of a second per sector gained by Van der Slick on Claessens, as you can see. And certainly this is going to become a 3-way fight. It is already a 3-way fight if you ask me. It's going to become one pretty soon. Let's see if now the Meraki drivers pull the trigger on the team orders or not.
I mean, this is rapidly turning into the Formula 1 race this season, isn't it? I mean, 2 teammates leading the way quite comfortably, not too much, quite a bit between the 2 of them. And then we've got 2 teammates who we don't know who should be ahead of one or the other. And then you've got another one just behind. He's kind of taking advantage of the situation. And similar dynamics being formed at the moment.
Ah, nice pun.
I didn't mean for
similar
it to be
dynamics.
but I suddenly realised that it was. And of course, do check out Dynamics. It's got paintballing and sim racing. the best combination of things in the world. And based in Belgium, of course. And if you're ever around the area, then certainly do check them out and check that out. Their website as well, of course. Certainly would love to go down there at some point. I mean, it's not that far for me, to be honest, Marco. It's much further for you. Although soon it might be a bit more of a hassle for me. We won't go into that too much. But now, once again, Ward gets across to the right-hand side of the track extremely early. But do you think they're deliberately holding line, Marco, or is there some fuel saving going on? Because considering that they've been ever so close to one another, they haven't actually come close to an overtake yet.
Yeah, you might be right. Maybe they are intentionally holding stations. I don't know. They have a plan in mind. As the halfway mark of the race is getting closer and closer, so at some point the cars will have to be put on the table, and the problem is that Van der Slick is getting closer and closer, even though his charge stopped just a little bit getting into the tail of Claessens and Ward. So we'll see if he's able to come even closer, as they are very, very close, to Meraki drivers. But as you can see, Claessens missing that extra bit of speed to mount a possible challenge, and of course very tough to pass there in the S's or even in this corner here, which will be forever be known as the Rosberg and Hamilton corner, I think. Of course, who can forget that race? First ever
See, I'm
victory.
trying to think of something else that happened at that corner, but literally that is the only thing that's ever happened at that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So as you can see, the Claessens is using an adapted livery from the GT car because it has the Pro sticker on the rear end. The things you notice when you have done this job for all this time, like me, and you are...
I mean, to be fair, you don't commentate on any GTE racing, so that's...
well, I
quite
used to do in the
impressive
past.
Yes.
Simracers Asia was certainly when they used to do the GT series, but it just got a glimpse of that Pro banner on the rear of the car, which is the WEC banner. So, and I mean the liveries of the two cars are pretty much interchangeable. There are some minor differences, like the rear view mirror, so you just have to take that into account. But apart from that, you can apply a GT3 488 livery on a GT car and vice versa.
Seemingly, Jeremy Hassel's having a little bit of an issue on this app. I'm just keeping an eye out on what time he did. In fact, actually, it wasn't too bad a time for Jeremy Hassels, but currently we've got quite the proposition of potentially three-way battles between the top 3, 10th, 11th, 12th, all with a fantastic chance of winning the title. So it's currently Anderson leading the way in this race and in the championship today. Because, of course, a crash, which we can often see, especially on the first lap in this series or in the last 10 minutes as well, as we've spoken.
By the way, the halfway mark of the race has just been recorded right now. We have still this fight here between Ward Claessens and Van der Slick, and the other close battle we were just watching, Anderson and Sherman, and of course we have to keep an eye on the comeback of Chris Warner sitting in P19 right now. And the front of the field, as per usual, all alone, enjoying a nice ride, is Martin van Loosenord. And behind him, you can see him not that far away, actually. It's 3 points. Is Danny Cruz. And then Ward, who makes a small mistake there. This might provide an opportunity. No, Claessens stays in line. And so, I mean, this fight will be super interesting when they go to the pit stop phase and see what happens. We have issues, yeah.
Another issue for Fury Simsport, not their day at the moment, with Chris Warner, of course, making a mistake earlier on, and you can see the damage on Neil Cooper's car. Seemingly, the steering wheel not too bad, but already he's going to lose another position very quickly. to Ben Thames for down to 16th place. So here was Neil Cooper then, was running in 13th place over the curb. That's how he got the damage. And just carrying way too much speed into that 7-8 chicane. So yeah, not a great day for Fury Sim Sport. At the moment, it's still got Martin Plowman up in 6th place and quite a comfortable 6th place. And if something happens to these three, could even turn into something better. But with 2 of their 3 cars struggling, could have hoped for a few more points. Of course, a team who have got half a chance at still winning the team's championship as it stands. The Swords and PJ Clayton's getting even closer, if that's possible. 3/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second on the exit of turn 5. And we are getting closer to the pit stop range. Expect them in about 10 minutes time or so. Even that might be a little bit too soon, maybe further than 10 minutes. And I fully expect PJ Clayton's to be able to go 1 or maybe even 2 laps longer than his teammate when all that happens.
It certainly looks like that is going to be the case, even though we have seen some surprising things
Yes.
strategy-wise this season, including the race leader being all alone and pitting 1 lap later than anyone else.
Road
So
Atlanta is
yeah, I think
when he was fuel saving in the lead
yeah.
to help out his teammates. And we were like, oh, well, he's going to be in big trouble when it comes to the pit stops.
Nope.
And he goes 1 lap further.
Using all of the track there and a little bit of the runoff area as well was Kevin van der Slick, as we have some a mistake, I think, for Steven de Wolf, and also Neil Cooper having some issues under pressure from Gregory Ranks. But let's go back here, because look at that, Van der Slick may have had enough. He certainly has had enough of this. He wants to join his teammates there at the front of the race. He wants to complete the rev match sweep of the podium. To do so, he needs to jump both of the Meraki cars, and it's going to be a tough ask for him.
Thanks to Marco Nutmella on the chat saying the Alonso wind crash happened on the exit of that corner. I believe that was the exit of turn 3 rather than turn 4. I mean, I could be wrong. One of the big conspiracies of Formula 1, that was it. Was it a bluster of wind? Was it an electric shock from the Earth system, perhaps? No one really knows. Very weird accident that. Because now I got coverage of pre-season testing, so it's not too much of an issue. Anyway, Kevin van der Slick, really close to the back of PJ Clayton, so he had to go defensive going into turn 10. Still, Clayton staying very close to Lewis Ward. You expect him to drop off a little bit now that he's paying his attention to his mirrors rather than out of the front of his car. And just taking a slightly wider line there is Clayton's. 4/10 of a second still, the gap between these two. And you can see down this first part of the straight, it's actually the leading Ferrari pulling away from the other Ferrari. And seeing that he's got the slipstream from his teammate, absolutely no pressure when they come down into turn 1. Now, a little bit of traffic from the Nomad Sim Racing car just ahead, which could spell danger for them. I'm trying to see who that is. Walker, thank you. I think he might be the only Nomad car in the field, so also know that one.
Yes, because
And
Kevin
Walker not
Bolland has
making-
left Nomad, so
Yes.
he's now running with his Kevin Bolland esports livery and switching cars this week from the from the Mercedes to the Audi. Sadly, only 5 laps on the books for Kevin, and then he had to retire. So they all go past the lapped car in one piece, and the battle will continue. All 3 of them were able to get past Ryan without any issue, and so
This is
the
close.
status quo remains the same.
I think that's the closest Clayton's has got. He was 2/10 of a second behind going out of turn 9. So they must be deliberately holding station, because that was a fantastic opportunity at making a move there. And they've got to be careful, because of course, if as the second place driver, if you're not wanting to take the drive ahead, you're going to brake earlier than the drive ahead, and that really does open the opportunity for Kevin van der Slik behind to go for a bit of a dive, perhaps. But there's 4/10 of a second between all three of them coming out of the final corner, so no chance at an overtake. Van Buel catching back up to Marshall, by the way. Down to 3/10 of a second between those two. It's a pretty good run as well for Van Buel coming out of the final corner as they head on to lap 22.
BMW sound unmistakable. Very high pitch sound. Here we go on the inside of the first corner, and Van Buel, if he can hold the car, he can make a nice move. There is Anderson going a bit wide there in the back, still able to keep the car in front of Sherman's. And as Bud Boland goes in, and nice move from Van Buel as we move back to this fight here. Ooh, just at the right moment, wide goes Claessens. Van der Slik finally gets the position.
He will be extremely glad about that. 8 places gained. Well, Kevin van der Slik now as Claessens comes as close to a spin as he possibly can, clipping that curve as Marco's been mentioning today, and that very nearly upset the car. It certainly did upset the car, but not enough to spin him round. Be thankful about that one. Of course, this second move should be easier for van der Slik now that the driver ahead of him doesn't have a situation. This is going to be a dive, like I said. Claessens not wanting to go for the overtake, braking earlier than his teammate, and he was so early on the brakes that van der Slik can make a relatively safe dive down into turn 5. And now this is important for Lewis Ward to hold back Claessens as long as possible, but this is really close now. 1.5 tenths of a second. He's pretty much perfect slingshot range as well. Should get a nice amount of momentum down the first half of this straight. Is there going to be any resistance put up by the Mercedes car? He's not putting his car to the middle of the circuit. And here comes van der Slik. Not deep enough on the brakes. Really good gutsy driving there from Lewis Ward. Because I thought that one was a done deal. But maybe just surprising van der Slik with his braking into that corner. And he can pull away a little bit. Needs to get Claessens involved a little bit to take off the pressure from him.
Fantastic fight. Great defending from Ward. I thought that was a deal, a done deal. As once again in this corner now on the outside is Van der Slik, using maybe a little bit of runoff area there to propel his run into the S's. Not going to happen. Of course, there is no way through here, or is it? No, there is not, unless you make a big mistake, and you have to be careful. You can lose a lot of time by jumping on those yellow curbs. And now on the backstretch as Ward goes a bit wide, but good run from Claessens as well. This is a fantastic fight, Sam.
It really is. Oh, Claessens go for it. No. Almost stopping them on the apex is Lewis Ward. They got 12 seconds back to Ruben Van Buel. A couple of pit stops just happening with Martin Plowman, who was about 5 seconds behind these guys coming into the pits. Like I said, if something happens to these drivers, then he will be the beneficiary, undoubtedly. Will any of them come into the pit this time? Yeah, Claessens ever so close to the chicane, but it seems as though whilst van der Slik is a little bit slow on the entry to that chicane, he gets a really nice launch. He's a little bit further back than he was on the last lap, and now it is the Meraki Racing driver trying to break the draft, but that acceleration for van der Slik dragging him closer. He'll look to the inside. He's not close enough. So nearly contact there. May have even been a bit of a shove from him. And now Claessens trying to get involved every which way. And Ward is trying to defend into pretty much all of these corners. Down into turn 4 they go now. Another not so big braking zone. But tell van der Slik that because he still feels so there's a decent opportunity out move. Now turn 5, this is where van der Slik is at its strongest. And this is where Ward defended early on the last lap, and he defends early again. Claessens really needs to get his nose on the inside. There's a few opportunities for him to get the move done here as they're going into 6 and 7.
Oh, wow. I thought that Claessens was going to go for a dive bomb there. No dice, but they are so evenly matched, these three drivers. Maybe van der Slik is a bit quicker, but Claessens certainly has some speed in hand. And here we go once again on the backstretch.
Yeah, down the inside goes Kevin van der Slick, and he's got the move done this time, and Ward loses 2 places right there. Great shame for him. But it's van der Slick, he's now gone up 11 places, 9 places he's gained. Clayton's will try to respond straight away, and maybe during the pit stops could be half an opportunity right on his back bumper. 0.3 of a second, the gap. Has he got any overspeed whatsoever?
Oh!
And so Ward, we were wondering where he was as we just went back to that shot. And is there an issue for Lewis Warder? Hardware issue, certainly that car looks fine. Maybe just having to restart his monitor or something.
Look at that steering wheel.
Oh dear.
We'll go to a replay as soon as we can. He's back on the surface. Oh, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, look at that. Hardware issue, unbelievable. Massive bad luck. And I can only think what... I mean, if this happened like 10 seconds earlier, all 3 of these drivers would have been out of the race probably, you know?
Yeah.
But still, massive bad luck for Lewis Ward. Hopefully he is able to fix his problem. He's still going. Oh,
Here
the
comes
dive bomb!
Clayton's from a long way back. Van der Slick gets pushed off the track. He should have the better line, but a very tight line. And now, all the way around the outside for Clayton's. They make contact. Van der Slick waits for the car to slide in front of him. Taps on the brake, and he gets the upper hand. Breaks the draft as well. Now, I don't think Clayton's will be too happy about this one, but I don't think there was a whole lot Van der Slick could do. Such a tight corner here, at such an acute angle, and there's barely any contact between the 2 of them, but just skimming. And it really cost the Meraki driver badly as Clayton's comes into the pits.
I want to see it from up here. I think there was minimal contact there, if contact at all. No, there was no contact. I think it was more of a connection induced crash. And you know, when your car is sliding is in a that dynamic state, as we like to say. It is as Danny Cruz came in and out of the pits, by the way. In the meantime, it only takes basically you can blow on the car and the car will spin. That's the way it works. Lewis Ward into the pits. Fingers crossed. He has temporarily fixed his problems, which I assume were steering wheel problems. By the way, the controls were basically stuck. As he gets into his pit stall and in for his stop, we'll keep an eye on him certainly. He has got only 15 minutes, Sam, to try and make something out of this race, which is most unfortunate. Which, by the way, Danny Cruz was in second, stopped before Martin van Loosenhoorn, who is in first. So once again, here we go. And here comes Martin, and let's see if Kevin van der Slick... Usually there's a point where everyone stops. Ben Thames with an issue. I think he spun in the first corner. So that was the...
Oh dear, no, not this. Oh dear. He was surprisingly early on the brakes, to be honest, was Thames. I assume there was contact. But I mean, this is like Bahrain-esque. You can see how far back. I mean, I think... Well, certainly it registers contact between the 2 of them. Great shame for Thames. That's his second spin of the race. As I thought that was Van Loosenhoorn in the pit lane. I was like, oh my goodness. Graves has taken the lead. He hasn't taken the lead. He's still in second place. Van Loosenhoorn been and gone in the pits. And he's still got a comfortable margin. Steve Place also coming into the pits from 5th place for a moment. There was a Rev Match Esports 1, 2, 3, 4. Not anymore. So, the order. So,
yeah. No, I'm looking at the pit stop times. Everyone stopping in the 12, 11, 12, 13 seconds range in the pit stall. the outlier, and I'm smiling under my mustache, is Driz Mujdi, because I think, knowing from his lessons, he stayed stationary for 17 seconds. He put the fuel also to go to the supermarket after the end of the race, but he knows this is a fantastic chance, and he wants to bring home as many points as possible as he's in a fight with Ewan Marshall, but still holding a very respectable top 10 in front of the silver leader, Jeremy Hessels, by the way.
So I'm just saying who benefits from that. So Hessels has benefited massively from that. I don't know what happened to Anderson. Anderson must have had an awful lap somewhere, because he was ahead of Hessels and is now 18 seconds behind him.
His pit stop was good, so he must have made a mistake somewhere.
I'm just looking at his lap times. It was either his in-lap or his out-lap. You can see the damage on his car as well. So that's a big shock for the Silver Championship leader. And he's pretty much by himself, 8.5 seconds behind Steve Clays. Also, seemingly something happening to Nick Sherman's.
Again?
Who is out of the race.
Who is out of the race. He is out of the race. Maybe a disqualification? I'm trying to see if I can find him somewhere in the event viewer. So was he still running there? No.
I mean, these two were quite close to one another on circuit, so perhaps a collision between two of the silver class challengers, and if it ended like this, Jeremy Hessels would massively help his chances of winning this title, and it seems though Nick Sherman's, perhaps his chances have ended now. So this is what happened to Anderson. I think he's already got some damage.
Yeah.
Although this is with the Berkay.
This is a mystery, to be honest with you. And I have no idea what happened. Oh, maybe we found it. Nick Sherman just parked the car now, so I don't know if he had some contact with Ingemar Anderson. Okay, there it is. It took me a lot of time, but there is a reason why I'm still employed by Apex. Hopefully, this is why.
Well, that is what happened then to those two drivers, and that is a massive change in the complexion of this race and in the championship. And it certainly does seem like going into the final round at Silverstone for the Silver Class Championship, it will be a two-horse race between Jeremy Hessels and Ingmar Anderson. They do get drop rounds, of course, to these drivers, but I think Sherman's may have already taken up a couple of his. So, looking pretty troublesome for him. In fact, yeah, Sherman's has already got 2-0 scores this season. Anderson with 2-0 scores himself, and Hessels with 1-0 score. Hopefully the championship will be nice and clear for us going into Silverstone. We really need all the help that we can get, but trying to give you a decent complexion as Anderson loses another place, this time to Gregory Ranks. It's really turning into a bit of a hellish final half an hour of this race, and already we're into the last 10 minutes, and this is usually where the race absolutely ignites. It's a little bit crazy, and Ewan Marshall, who did well during the pit stops, got ahead of Driz Mujdi. Up in 6th place at the moment is Marshall, and this would be one of his best ever results in this series, I believe, Mark. I mean, it's been pretty consistent this season, to be fair.
I mean, you are the statistician, you know,
I am.
of Apex. So you asking me the question is pretty moot, because I barely remember my name usually in the morning.
I mean, I would like to make some sport quizzes of the various series we do, of, you know, race winners in each season. A little bit of trivia for each of the championships. Anyone who isn't aware of Sporkle, greatest website in the world, safe to say. Ewan Marshall, though, under massive pressure from Giles Mouchty, he's been quite cautious so far today. He realises what is at stake after a no score at Imola last week, which put his bronze championship in a bit of jeopardy if he could get a good result here. And then all he'll need to do is finish pretty much at Silverstone, and he will be the champion. And you could see he was nowhere near close enough, going for a move into turn one. Not too much to lose for Ewan Marshall. Gold driver, as now Mouchty with an incredible run coming out of turn three. Marshall really struggling on the outside there. Just way more grip seemingly for the Audi as he
Oh,
spins
no,
round, does
no, no.
Mouchty. Now he can get this one back going. He just needs to make sure he doesn't make contact with anyone.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's a vast gap for him to slot back into of about 10 seconds back to Steve Clays, who's just in the background there. And that's not too disastrous for Mouchty, but a top 6 finish was looking very possible for a moment there.
Yeah, and all on his own, almost ending in a disaster there. Like you were saying, luckily there was a big gap between this battle and the battle behind him, so he was able to put his car back on the racing surface without causing any issue. By the way, after the stop, Lewis Ward is sitting in P22. He has lost 18 places from his starting position, now trying to make a comeback amidst the bronze class drivers. This is the fight for the podium, by the way, in bronze between Kastrop and Thijs van den Berg. Ward should, if his car is okay and his wheel is okay, by the way, should be able to get the move done. Let's get back to this fight here, because this is the closest fight that we have on the field, and it is 6th and 7th overall, plus the leader of the silver class, Jeremy Essels, who, you know, once again, we were asking many times to ourselves, some in the past, is it worth for the silver leader or the bronze leader to fight with other classes? Well, this year the answer is absolutely yes, and that is why, of course, Mouchty was going for that move there. Once again, no matter what class you are in, you get the points for the class championship based on the position where you finish overall in the race, and so it's not like in the past where the first bronze or silver or gold class, no matter where he finished, he got full points in that class for that race. So Essels staying close to these two guys, and you can see Marshall and Van Buel are not pulling any punches, sliding through the S's and looking to get possibly a move on each other. By the way, what is the incident situation now with the 5 minutes left, more or less? Oh, maybe later. Here comes Van Buel. He almost comes to a stop on the inside. The set was tight at the angle there, and Marshall keeps the position. What is the incident situation, especially at the front?
So, for the drivers who are close, 25 incidents across the limit. Plowman's on 17, so he should be okay. Danny Cruz is on 22. So if a back marker takes him out or something, then that will be his race over. The drivers close, Ben Thanes on 21, Stephen De Wolf on 22, Van Oitzven on 20, also Pim Bao on 19, and William Bush on 21. So no one running at mega close, no one got disqualified so far today, but a couple of collisions could spell danger for these guys. And of course, whilst Hessels would like to get past these couple of drivers, with Ingmar Andersen continuing to lose places at the moment. He's down into 15th place, was overtaken by Ben Thanes. He's about 3 seconds off the pace at the moment, as Van Buel's got another good opportunity. This is the part of the circuit where he seems to be quick. Managed to hold back the attacks earlier on. Did Ewan Marshall from Giles Mouchty. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to resist these ones, as trying to get the cut back is Ruben Van Buel. However, this run down into turn 7 is just not long enough. And he's going to have to wait for another opportunity. He's still got time though, and there are a few overtaking places around this track, but certainly the Mercedes seems to have the edge on him at the moment. Once again, into turn 10 is going to be an opportunity. Can he go for the dummy perhaps? Will the BMW? Yes, that's what he's going to try to do down the inside. The BMW brakes absolutely superb. However, the Mercedes keeping part of his car around the outside. Now, will he have the
Beautiful.
inside for this long right-hander? No,
Beautiful
he
pass.
won't. Ruben Van Buel gets ahead, and he's up into 6th place. And now, this is the time for Jeremy Hessels to pounce.
It is, as we say hello to Pablo Lopez joining us in the chat. I actually was thinking about making a Spanish language introduction to the broadcast, but I preferred
Can you speak
not
Spanish?
to. No, not a lot, but the bare minimum. Oh no, Steve Clays from
Oh.
second place in class, speeding is still second. Is his car okay? Some damage, I think, to the front. Third in class is Ben Thanes, and he is taking to the chicane right now. Let's see if he hit the wall or not. Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe it was the sun that made me think that he hit the wall there.
He hit every curb.
No, he hit the wall there. Yeah.
Only lost 1 place overall. That was to Bod Boland.
Only 2 minutes left and a bit more. Martin van Loozenord, your race leader in front of Danny Kroos, Van der Slick, Claessens and Plowman. Fantastic drive from Plowman, as Sam might need to start thinking about the driver of the day. In silver is Jeremy.
You always pin it on me, don't you?
I have to do too many things at once.
Jeremy
Essels is the leader of the silver class drivers in front of Steve Claes. Despite this scare, he looks to be good holding on. Then Ben Thanes, Ingemar Andersson, and in 5th place it's Ronald Moons, making a good comeback after being involved in a mess at the start of the race. Dries Mujdi, your bronze class leader. 2nd place, Rob Tyson. In 3rd place, we have Thijs van den Berg, who is just in front of his closest rival in class, Steven Kastrop. 5th, Pim Bouw in 24th spot. Where is our race leader? Oh, there he is. So getting closer and closer to lapping these cars, and I think lapping in the 1 minute 43 range, 44 as of late. I'm quite confident this is going to be the penultimate lap of the race. Oh, as we have an issue for Lewis Ward.
Ah, dear. Well, hopefully it's not. Oh, I think there might
dear.
be another
Yeah, look at the steering wheel.
failure for him.
Oh, he
Not
said
an
enough.
issue we've seen Lewis face before. And from a podium, he hasn't had the best seasons as well, too. He hasn't taken part in too many of the races. He did, maybe he just lost the car. Not quite sure. But that was it for Lewis Ward. And yeah, his fan club, who haven't been too active, it must be said, on the YouTube chat today. Even when he was running in the top 5, will not be best pleased. Pim Bao, who's been a little bit quiet so far in today's race, haven't given too much attention. Getting ahead of Stuart Musselwhite, another driver who haven't given too much attention to. Apologies to any of the Jazz who haven't got too much screen time, but has been an action-packed race, as we always see. And we're always going straight to the battles, as we are with this one. Gregory Vranks giving in quite easily. Surprising that Vranks didn't challenge that one a little bit more against Chris Warner. He's had a good recovery after an absolutely awful start, as Pim Bao has had an issue out there, I think. Jeremy Hessels, though, meanwhile, trying to get past Ewan Marshall. And this is for 7th place. They've dropped a long way back from Ruben Van Buel. And Hessels is going to gain a crucial extra point. That might even be an extra 5 points. And if it ends like this, he will undoubtedly be the championship leader going into the final round at Silverstone before drop scores are applied. Not a bit wide, but he should have enough incidents to spare. Now having to go defensive. We've seen one class leader get involved in an incident with Ewan Marshall already today. He's just behind at the back of this shot is Dries Mujdi. As Hessels runs wide again, almost a bit of a look-up, surprisingly, in these ABS abled cars, as Martin van Loozenord comes around the final corner. and he's going to make it 10 wins out of 11 this season. The RevMatch esports driver back on the top step of the podium. Once on his return, he was absolutely unstoppable. Danny Crows will round out a nice 1-2 for RevMatch esports. And guess who's next? Kevin van der Slick, last week's race winner, and it's going to help his chances of finishing second in the championship as well. He completes a 1-2-3. Good recovery drive from Kevin van der Slick from 12th on the grid. Clayton's pushed him hard. In 4th place, kept him very honest after the pit stops. Top of the silver drivers then, looks like it's going to be Jeremy Hassels. And there are some complications with drop scores and whatnot, but certainly, undoubtedly, he has won out of his championship rivals today, and he will cross the line and wins in the silver class. Behind them, Dries Mujdi is going to take a stunning 9th place. It could have maybe even been better, but I'm sure he'll take that and will extend his lead in that bronze class championship. Just a few more drivers to cross the line. Rob Thiessen trying to hang on against Neil Cooper currently.
Yes, just waiting for the final few drivers to come home. Another driver that is close in a fight is Roy Verweke here, fighting with Steven Kastrup. Let's follow this duo of Tyson and Cooper. They come home. The start-finish line is actually very, very close to the exit of the corner. And here we go, Kastrup and Verweke. As the race is now over, and in just a second we will bring you to the final race results for this 11th round of the season.
Yes, and it is Martin van Loosenholt then who wins out. Another stunning victory from him. Danny Craze, only 11.3 seconds behind. That's much closer than what we saw at Kota a fortnight ago, but still was comfortable for Van Loosenholt. Good result there for Craze. Van der Slick finishes in 3rd place. That was PJ Clayton's. Good result for him in 4th. There was Martin Plowman, Ruben Van Buel, Jeremy Hasselstop on the silver drivers, Ewan Marshall, Giles Mujdi in the top of the bronze category in 9th, and then Bod Burnham rounding out the top 10. Behind that was Steve Clays, Chris Warner, Gregory Vranks, Ben Thanes, Ingmar Anderson, Rob Thiessen, Neil Cooper, Ronald Moons, Theisberg, Stephen Kastrop, and Roy Verkate. That's all the drivers on the lead lap. One lap down, and there were quite a few of them. Pim Bow, Stuart Musselwhite, Graham Van Oytman, William Bush, Ryan Walker. 2 laps down was Lewis Ward. 3 laps down was Stephen DeWolf. And the retired were Nick Shermans, Kevin Boland, and Dion Phillips. James Hobden did not take the start. And now I can announce my driver of the day. And my driver of the day, after a brilliant qualifying, putting it up in 5th place on the grid, drove a very good race, had a little bit of a issue, admittedly at turn 4, but Dries Mujdi drove a superb race on the most part, a superb day, and really does help his championship as well. So driver of the day goes to the 377 car of Dries Mujdi. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, the message the driver I would have picked. So congratulations, Sam. That was a very good choice. And the driver, here we go. It is official now on your screen. Driver of the day, Dries Mujdi. So congratulations to him. We already have a couple of drivers waiting for interviews, and so I think we can start the proceedings, Sam.
Yes, and we will have a chat with Danny Crows first. And Danny, congratulations back to racing and a 2nd place. You must be quite pleased with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a long time since I was back on the sim, so to start with a P2 is good.
How did you find this Barcelona circuit? Of course, a new track to iRacing. Do you think it fits this car quite well?
Yeah, of course, the circuit is really suitable for GT3. So yeah, I can't wait to drive here in real life actually.
Yes. What series will you be racing around this place in real life?
Probably next year GT3, but which championship I don't know yet.
Awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck for
Thank
that
you.
one. Today, Martin was absolutely lightning quick as always. He just seemed to have maybe quarts of a second on you. It seems to be that was the difference. Do you have any idea maybe where he was picking up that little bit of time?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just grip in general, and especially on the braking, the Ferrari is really strong. But yeah, I think in the first part I could keep up. In the middle part I was a little bit faster, but then the last part was really bad for the car. And then of course the Ferrari wins 2.5 seconds on the pit stop. So yeah, that's a lot of time that you lose already with doing nothing. So yeah, it's really hard to drive against the Ferraris at the moment. But yeah, we keep pushing.
Yeah, it certainly was a superb effort out there. Can we expect to see you next week for the season finale?
Yeah, that's for sure. For sure, we'll be there.
Awesome. We look forward to that. Before we let you go, Danny, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank my sponsors, Heusingveld, and of course the team for the good job that we did this week again.
Well, thanks for having a chat with us, Danny, and best of luck for next week.
Thank you.
So that was Danny Crows there, finishing in second place overall and in class.
Yes, next up, of course, our race winner, Martin van Loosener, who should be with us right now. Hello, Martin, and welcome back.
Hello, guys. Thank you.
So, nice to have you back once again, and you didn't waste any time. Another great race victory. So, describe us how the preparation for this race and this race went on.
Well, thank you. The preparation was decent. We did the practice on Monday and tonight a little bit, so I guess that was enough to win it. And I think it suits the Ferrari quite well, so that's why we didn't have to look at the setup that much.
How was it? What do you think about this track? Fairly new to the service, and came out very recently. So, do you like it? Do you dislike it?
No, I love it. To be honest, you yeah, I don't know. It's just about to get the lines right, and sometimes it's not. You need to take the corner a little bit shorter, just because the grip is over there and not on the outside, sort of thing. Like turn three, you can go really early on the throttle, but then you can take the corner really wide, but it's probably a little bit quicker when you take it a little bit shorter. So yeah, I like this track. I like this track. It's really a lot of corners driving on oversteer, just on the edge, and that's also yeah. You need to get the setup right to be able to do that. So
Next week, another quote unquote new track, at least on the surface, is going to be the new Silverstone. Did you have the chance to run around there? And what are your thoughts about that race?
yeah, I've done an official race in the beginning of this season. I think it was beginning of this season, and an Audi won there. So it's going to be tough with a Ferrari again. Uh, but we'll see what happens, and we're a bit quicker on the pit stops. So yeah, we should be all right. But yeah, again, I love that track. I've always loved Silverstone, and I think I love the new track layout uh, a lot more basically than the old one.
So, maths are not my strong suit, and Sam is actually the official calculator of the points for us. And was a bit confused, not confused, a bit.
Oh, I was
Uh,
confused.
you were confused, okay? So we won't say anything, but let's say that we are waiting for you next week to celebrate the title with us after the race, no matter what happens.
All right. Well, it seems like you've got your calculations quite right then. But let's do it next week.
Thank you very much, Bart. And before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank?
Thank you guys for covering this series. Thank my team for the preparation and put their time in. Would like to thank the sponsors UGX Racing Simulators, RB Skillworks, and Uitert.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Martin. Nice to have you back, and we will catch you next Wednesday.
See you next week. Bye bye.
And Sam, that was Martin van Loosenord, and we round up the interviews and the podium with one more Rev Match driver.
Yes, and we are going to have a chat with Kevin van der Slik. And Kevin, congratulations, podium out there. I think first question though, what happened in qualifying? 12th place. You seem to have a lot more pace than that.
Yeah, happy with my third finish in quali. I don't know what happened. I think I put the wrong setup in, I guess, but the car fell when I clicked for sure the race setup in the or right before the start. Actually, the car felt like pretty good since the first lap and did some overtaking here and there. I think I came from P12 and yeah, had a good run in the first 5 laps and into P6, and then shortly I followed the guys in the Bonarchy guys in 3, 4, 5, and then yeah, well, I was just waiting for a gap, and then yeah, luckily I came in third position without any major issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you find the overtaking out there? Because in the previous broadcast we've done around this place, it's been quite tricky to overtake. It seemed a little bit tricky today as well. I mean, yeah, what were your opinions of it?
I mean, it was hard, but overtaking is art. So you are really good in it, or you're just not good in it. I mean, look at the Formula One guys, Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen. That's a whole different level. So it's just you have to practice. Well, hopefully with your own teammates, because we practice a lot with overtaking and stuff. So I knew where the breaking points were for the sharp chicanes, and the Mercedes was good on the straights and not really good in the sector one. So I was just waiting for one moment, and I could dive in the little gap, and that's yeah. It took me 3 laps in to overtake them. So that's what I did in 3 laps. I was over him.
And next week we head to Silverstone. It's very much helps your championship. This result, second place in the championship, looking quite strong now. That would be a really good result, I guess, for the team and for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. My eyes were actually on Chris Warner because he was my first contender for the second place. But I think he spun himself or crashed into someone in the last chicane, and
Yes.
then yeah, at some point I saw Chris Warner behind me. I was like, guys, I think Chris Warner spin. So there was no, if I was fourth, fifth, sixth, or whatever, um, I was gaining some points on him. So the championship, actually, the whole race I drove for the championship, and yeah, P3 is just a bonus actually.
Yeah, definitely looking very strong going into Silverstone next time. Thanks for having a chat with us, Kevin. Before we say goodbye, is there any shout outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, the team, of course, for actually, I don't know if it's our first 1, 2, 3, but we didn't have a lot of 1, 2, 3s, but for sure Marta for the win, and of course you guys for hosting it as well, and the sponsors as well that's involved in Ref Match. So yeah, thank you, and see you next week.
Awesome. Best of luck for next week, Kevin.
Bye bye.
That was
Well,
our third interview with a Rev
yeah.
Match esports driver, Kevin van der Slik, and I think Marco, we might have one more.
Yeah, last but not least, always great to have him back with us. Second in his class, Steve Clays. Hello, Steve.
Good evening, boys.
Yeah, first of all, I want to reiterate a point I was making during the broadcast is that one day, since I was a little kid and I read reports on it on Italian racing magazines, I want to run in the Fun Cup at Spa one of these days. So, uh, maybe one day you will tell me how to do it. What do I need to do, because it looks like a lot of fun, and I know you are basically racing there every year.
Well, you should have been there today then, because I was at Spa today with the Fun Cup. We had the track day, and it was raining, so it's sliding all over the place. It was just great, man. I just had so much fun. And tomorrow I have another track day at Zolder, so yeah, quite some racing going on.
Awesome. And you were also great on the racetrack today with this second position. How was you were always there in the in the midfield more or less, of course, fighting not only with your class rivals but also with other drivers. And that is what is usually goes on for you guys of the silver and bronze categories. How was your race in the end?
I had a good race in qualifying. I wanted to, yeah, be a little bit more at the front, but okay, I messed up the start. The start went very fast. I was holding back, and then suddenly it went green, so I lost a few positions. Then there was some chaos in turn one. I don't know what happened. I think it was my teammate who was a little bit too enthusiastic. But I got in the first two laps, yeah, I got an incident. I got a little bit damaged, but the car was not damaged. I didn't feel it. Then I got stuck behind my teammate Bot, who was a little bit slower than me. But okay, I wanted to draft him, drive with two in a line and just progress. It was a good race. In the end, I got a bit lucky. Ingemar made an error and he crashed a little bit, and then Nick, who left the racetrack for some urgent stuff. I think, I don't know why he left. So I got second. I tried to catch Jeremy. I was a little bit faster just before the pit stops, but afterwards, yeah, the gap stayed the same, and then I made the stupid mistake in the chicanes. Hateful, hateful, hateful chicane. But anyway, I got second.
Yeah, we were talking about those, especially those yellow curbs or curves or whatever, speed bumps, terrible around this racetrack. So one more race left in Silverstone. Are you ready for it?
I guess I need a little bit more practice because the new Silverstone is not my, I'm not gonna say favorite, but I don't have it in my head completely. But Barcelona was also not really in the head. I practiced yesterday because I really had problems with the chicane. Today was better. Uh, I watched the data, and yeah, I know where the problems were, so I had to work on it, and it's gonna be the same for Silverstone. I really have to practice. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Gonna give it my best. So maybe, yeah, another podium in silver. Let's go for that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Steve. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank?
I want to thank the team again, my teammates, Ben and Ingemar, because we are in the silver. We work, yeah, quite a lot together in the race, and we discuss who is where. So I want to thank those guys. It's really enjoyable with racing with them. So yeah, and again, you guys too for the broadcast.
Awesome, Steve. Have a good rest of the week, and we will catch you on Wednesday then.
Okay, and by the way, I'll get in touch to you for you driving the Fun Cup.
Oh, awesome! Thank you very much. I don't know
Okay,
how happy the other drivers are going to be, but thank you very
uh,
much,
those
man.
those are problems for later. Don't worry.
Okay.
Everybody has to start. So okay,
All
see
right.
ya.
Thank you, Steve. Have a good night. So, Sam, we are getting closer to the end of this broadcast. Let me have a quick reminder to our viewers that fun does not stop here. Tomorrow, the ARL TCR Championship Winter Series will be on the iRacing Esports Network, and you don't want to miss that. Friday, we have on our regular channel, Apex Racing TV, a big one because it's going to be the Indianapolis Strength of Field race for the IndyCar Open Series, and that will be basically a big shakedown for the Open Wheel 500 that is this weekend. So there's going to be some fantastic names. It's going to be, I think, the highest strength of field in quite some time in that series, and it will be 20 GMT here on Apex Racing TV. And of course, Saturday, 20 GMT, the Formula 3.5, but I mean, I cannot wait for the 18 GMT race of the Euro V8s because that championship is looking mighty close with just 2 rounds left, with uh, with basically I'd say 3 drivers, maybe 4 still in the hunt. We could have a second title for Brandon, a third for Klusterman, or the first ever title for George McClay. So it's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be at one of the best tracks in the world at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, should be a terrific week coming up on the iRacing Esports Network and on Apex Racing TV. And if you could subscribe to either of them, we would mega appreciate it. And of course, if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like as well.
Just let
Of
me tell
course,
you, sir, one more thing. Sunday there should be the Aussie Mixed and Fixed, and I use this moment to give a big shout out to everyone affected in Australia by the big fires, especially our colleagues. Sadly, the IMSA SOF race had to be postponed, the broadcast, because of the fires getting close to our colleagues' houses. Hopefully, on Sunday, the Mixed and Fixed series can go on as scheduled. So, a big hug to our friends, watchers, colleagues down under.
definitely, absolutely, we echo that. And yeah, best of luck to those guys, and hopefully the issues resolve themselves sooner rather than later. But of course, next week we'll also be broadcasting the Simracersworld GT Series, same time for the final race of the season from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit as well. But for now, from me and from Marco, we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.